Hey guys, what's up? I'm Fyrax, and today I wanted to talk about Battlefield, and more specifically the fact that Battlefield is getting to a state where it feels more and more arcadey. The entire franchise, from I guess pretty much Bad Company 2, just started feeling more and more arcadey with the type of gameplay, rapid gameplay, disorganized, less teamwork, and of course there was that before, but now it feels like the DICE is moving further and further away from this huge Battlefield community type of feeling. And I know DICE has been trying to implement new features and things to promote team play and group play, but it feels like a lot of the things that they're putting in place are just kind of redundant and not actually really doing anything to promote team play and people playing together. I mean, of course, if you already have a group of friends that you play with, you're of course going to play with them. But for all of those solo players out there, there must be a way to try and get them to play together as a community and as a group, as a squad, something that will actually get players to work together, which would in turn increase the fun of the game for those players, but as well for the opposing team, because they're going to pose more of a threat, so it actually is going to feel like a challenge and not just running between flags, randomly killing people that are between them. You're actually going to feel like you're doing something when you kill somebody. So in today's video, I wanted to go over some things that I find could have some improvement, suggest some new ideas, and I mean, of course, we're not going to revolutionize the game itself, and I think the game is in a steady place where a lot of people are fine with the way that the game is playing out right now, and I mean, when I play it, it's fun, sure, but I think there might be a way to put in new features, new game modes into the game itself to allow the other people that want a more realistic feeling of the game to actually happen without removing the content that's already there. Create different types of game modes and things like that for all of those people. So, and you're going to tell me, of course, that there are those custom games that are there, and there's the hardcore mode if you want something that's more realistic. But I still think that there could be some tweaks and features that could be added on top of that to improve the realistic feel of the game, and as well the community aspect part of the game, where people are going to play more together. Anyways, with that beginning rant out of the way, let's get started. So I just want you to keep in mind before we get started that everything I'm going to suggest here is on top of the gameplay that already exists. I mean, I find that the gameplay that is already in place is fine and it's fun and people are going to play it and they're going to keep playing it. But really, I'm suggesting new things to add on for the people that want a type of more realistic type of gameplay. So first of all, one of the things I brought up earlier was that there was not enough team play in Battlefield 1. And I find that this is true, especially compared to the old Battlefield franchise games where squad play was primordial. It was just something that would happen a lot more often. And I don't know if it's either the lack of will of the players or if it's just that there's no real incentive to play together as a squad unless you're playing with friends that you know, where that'll, of course, be more fun if you play together. But when you're playing with random people, I find there isn't enough incentive to actually want and play with them as a squad. Sure, sometimes it'll happen, but I mean, DICE has been trying, and you can see that with the things that they've put in place, like the squad boost, so that it would promote people wanting to join a squad so they could profit from that person's squad boost as well. But I mean, even that, people are just going to stay in the squad and they're not going to play together. They're not going to be cohesive. They're not going to stay as an actual group, which I find is actually quite sad. And don't get me wrong, I mean, of course, sometimes you're just going to want to come home after a long day at work or school and play by yourself, not necessarily with other people. So what I'm going to suggest is really something to help promote the amount of teamwork and team play and group cohesion in the game itself. And of course, awarding points is a good way to promote team play. I mean, everybody wants points to unlock their stuff and get new weapons and new gear and etc. But the problem with that, especially in Battlefield 1, is that a lot of the unlockable gear is at level 10, which is a huge grind, and on top of that, there's not a ton of it. So once you've unlocked it, and it happens quite fast, most people don't really care about unlocking new weapons or getting all the different types of variants for the same weapon, because it's the same weapon with maybe one iron sight or a foregrip on it, but it's basically the same weapon. You're not going to have the amount of customization that you would get in Battlefield 4, for example, where there every single gun was hard to unlock. Some of them had special missions that you had to do to unlock them, so that would increase the longevity of the game and give people actual reasons to want to go for the grind. And on top of that, every single weapon had its own customization unlocks to go through. So that would even increase the longevity and the grind part of the game even more. But it didn't really feel like a grind because there was just so much variant. And one day you could say, I'm going to play like this. I'm going to play an assault player with this gun and this configuration of the weapon, this loadout specifically. The next day you're going to try another loadout with a different customization of your weapon. So it really gave you a huge amount of choice to go through. But in Battlefield 1, you don't have that many weapons, so giving people an XP incentive is not necessarily the best thing to do, because once they've unlocked all of those weapons, and like I said earlier, it happens quite fast, they're not necessarily going to be looking for that XP to unlock new weapons, because they already have them unlocked. However, I do honestly think that giving people XP for working together is a good incentive to help them play together and stick together throughout the actual gameplay. So that would mean that we would need to get more content in the game itself, and I know it's difficult for DICE to come up with new realistic content that is realistic for the actual era of the game, which is World War I, because most soldiers only had bolt-action rifles or semi-automatic rifles, and all of those automatic weapons did not exist. And if they did exist, there were like so few of them on the actual battlefield that, they were negligible. So anyways, let's assume that giving players XP is a good way to promote team play. So what I thought might help squads stay together is giving them a constant pool of XP as long as they stay together in a close proximity of one another. So let's say 100 meters or 50 meters of one another. If they really stick together, they should constantly get a small pool of XP that's constantly getting added to their XP bar. Now you're going to say that no, that's not going to work, because then people aren't even going to play the objective anymore if they're constantly getting XP without actually doing anything by just staying together. And that's why I think this XP should only be awarded at the end of the game if the team they're on wins. Like that, they actually have an incentive to go and get those objectives. So there, I think naturally people are going to want to stay together to get that XP, and because, they want to get it at the end of the game, they're actually still going to go cap those objectives. And I don't think it should be an extravagant amount of XP. It should be something not too big, not too small, right in the middle. I don't exactly know how much it should be, but I think that that's a good solution to try and get people to play together as well. Furthermore, something that really bugs me is if you're playing the scout class and you're trying to play the objective, you're helping out your squad, and you're helping them cap points, sometimes, well, most of the time, it's not. And of course, it's not sensible for you to go help your squad by actually going onto the point, because you only have a bolt-action rifle. So oftentimes, even though you're the scout class and you're helping your teammates cap points, you're not going to get the points for the cap, so that's not normal either. And of course, I don't think people out in the distance just sniping out of 3,000 kilometer distance, not really helping the team at all, should get points for capping a point if they're not helping at all. But I still think that if you're not necessarily on the point but still helping your team out, just because you're a scout class and it doesn't make sense for you to actually go into the point, doesn't mean you should lose out on getting those points. So what I think should happen as well is, as long as you're in a squad and you're not a tremendous distance away from your squad that's actually capping the points, and you're looking in their general objective, scouting around the objective to see if there is enemies approaching, you should get at least a portion of the points that your squad is getting, if not all of the points for the cap. And of course, this should be a server option, so if people want to promote group play, they should be able to check a box that says that this type of gameplay is going to be authorized and promoted. Like that, the old gameplay isn't changed fundamentally, but you still have new game modes and game types added on top of the existing gameplay. On top of that, to add to the arcadey feel of Battlefield 1 and the previous Battlefield games, spawn times are very, very short. If you get killed, you're basically instantly back into the action. And where I do think that this is a good thing for certain types of servers, especially domination servers or team deathmatch servers, I think there should be an option to dramatically increase your spawn time on conquest servers. And of course, not all Conquest servers should have this, but some of them should have maybe a 1 minute spawn time, which would really increase the immersion of the game, because when you know that you're gonna die and you're gonna have to wait 1 minute, that's gonna suck. So you're really going to try and survive as long as you can. It's going to give you this more immersive sense that you are in this war, and if you die, it actually means something. It's not just, oh, I died, I can respawn in 10 seconds, whatever, I can just keep spawning and running into the action, and I don't really care if I die or not. So that would give you a really good sense of immersion, and people aren't going to be running around everywhere if they know that they have a 1 minute spawn after they die or something, or maybe even a 2 minute spawn, or 3, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you guys played Battlefield 4, but there was a game mode that was quite interesting. Well, it was kind of like a CSGO game mode, where it was called diffuse, and if you died in that game, you would have to wait the end of the round, which could take up to 5 minutes. So if you died at the beginning of the round, you would have to wait around 5 minutes before you could potentially spawn back in, unless, of course, the round ended earlier, but sometimes it would finish after the 5 minutes, so you'd actually have to wait 5 minutes. And I can tell you, when I was playing that game mode, people weren't running in all directions. People were synchronized, organized, and I don't know if it's the fact that there were very few people on the server when you would have a game mode of that type. I mean, I think it was only 5 players per team, so 1 squad each on each side, but people were very organized. They would generally communicate, they would try to stick together, and sometimes it would be chaotic, but most of the time people wouldn't run in the open or wouldn't just charge at an enemy praying that they would get him. They would actually try and stay organized and not die. They wanted to survive because they wanted to avoid that 5 or 3 minute period where they would not be able to have any gameplay. And the immersion was a lot stronger with that type of gameplay. So if either DICE decided to increase the spawn times on some Conquest servers, or if they were able to implement a new game mode kind of like Diffuse into Battlefield 1, though I mean, that would kind of feel weird because Diffuse is kind of like a modern warfare type of thing, and it wouldn't really fit in, at least the way that the game was designed in Battlefield 4, it wouldn't fit into Battlefield 1 at all. So I don't know how they could develop that, but there probably is a way that they could try to add longer spawn times and reduce the amount of players on a map to really give you this full sense of immersion. And there's 2 more things that I find that really make this game kind of arcadey, and the first thing is the amount of automatic weapons that you see on the battlefield. It's a World War I type of game, so there were not many, if not any, automatic weapons on some of the fronts. Most fronts simply had bolt-action rifles and semi-automatic rifles. So I wouldn't mind if some of the servers would dramatically reduce the amount of automatic weapons that you could have in the game. And of course there's custom games where you can completely ban the automatic weapons, but I don't think that's necessarily the solution. I think, and in Battlefield 4 there was this on some of the private servers, a max count for automatic weapons. It was in Battlefield 4, generally for sniper rifles, you would only really be able to have 3 sniper rifles or scout players on each team. And for example, if you were a new player on the server, you just spawned in and you decided to pick up a sniper rifle and the max sniper rifle count on the server was already reached, then you would not be able to play with a sniper rifle. And that limited the amount of sniper rifles that you would get on a map. So I think it would be nice to see this feature put into the game for Battlefield 1, especially for the automatic weapons, where you can only have 1, 2, or maybe 3 players maximum on a 64-player map using automatic rifles. Because the custom game mode right now only really allows you to either ban them completely or have them in the game, which is not necessarily a solution either, especially if when you ban for example, the automatic weapons in a server, nobody is going to play the assault class because nobody just wants to use the gadgets, they also want to use the rifles. So I think it'd be neat if on some servers you'd be able to combine some of the weapons from one class with the gadgets from another. And I mean, of course, you can't do this on all servers, it would just be pure chaos, but I think on some servers it would be interesting to have that option. And finally, the last thing I find is kind of causing this game to be too arcadey is the amount of vehicles in the game. So I remember in Battlefield 2, when I started playing the Battlefield franchise, sometimes if there were no vehicles in your spawn, you would have to walk about 5 minutes to get back into the action. And that kind of brings us back to our other point, where if you have longer spawn times, or if it takes longer to get back into the action, you're going to be more careful. You're not just going to run into the action, not caring if you die or not, because you know that 2 seconds later you can immediately spawn back into the action. You're going to play more strategically. So if you reduce the amount of vehicles or mobility vehicles in the game, or at least on some servers again, not all servers, I think it would increase the amount of strategic play and limit the amount of arcadey feel that the game has currently. And on top of that, I think the spawn times for some of the vehicles is just way too low. For example, if you finally manage to destroy a tank that's been ravaging your team for about 10 minutes, and you finally get to destroy it, I think you should at least have 5 minutes of freedom without a tank spawning again on the enemy team, and be able to get right back into the action again, and basically there's no point in you destroying the tank because there's a brand new one with full health on the battlefield once again. Anyways, I could keep ranting on for ages, but this video is getting already way too long. So basically, I wanted to sum up the different points that I suggested. So the first one was increasing the amount of squad play and team play in the game. The second one was to increase the spawn time once you die, so that people don't just run into the action not caring if they die, knowing that they can spawn immediately. The third one was limit the amount of automatic weapons in the game, so that it feels more realistic, and like that people don't just run and gun in all directions everywhere on the map. And the fourth and final one was reduce the amount of vehicles on the map or increase their spawn times. Anyway guys, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like if you liked this video, and please leave a comment down below with your opinion and what you think of my suggestions. And if you have any other suggestions, please leave them down in the comments below as well. Feel free to subscribe for more content, and don't forget to check out my other videos, such as a forest series where we try to survive and do the basics of the game. Anyway guys, thanks again for watching, and peace out.